So what I want to focus on, and I'm going to show you some pictures of all these different doors, but in the month of March I bought 14 interior doors. You can see here one of the different door types that I bought. And then in July I started to experience some really severe problems that I'm going to share with you shortly. Now what I want to call your attention to is in the description it says engineered wood core frame. Okay, so it's something you may not pay attention to. Home Depot, Lowe's interior doors the frame is made of wood. Okay, so we're talking about the frame, this exterior part here, not the door itself. Okay, so what happens with engineered wood? Well, what is the definition of engineered wood? Well, there's multiple definitions because it can contain different materials: plywood, fiberboard, particle board, laminated veneer, etc. These doors, from what I can see, is particle board, and I'll share some close-up images of that. And the problem with particle board is, yes, it's a type of fiberboard, but it's a much cheaper thing. So when appearance and durability are less important than cost, that's when people use this. The problem is you can't be using that for doors with the weight on it or exposure to humidity, use, etc., without having some serious issues. So let me now move over to the pictures. Before I do, I want to point something that I've just noticed now. Very interestingly, Menards makes it a point, unlike the majority of websites, Home Depot, Lowe's, Wayfair, all these different, Amazon, they do not show ratings or reviews for their products. And now I can see why they do it, because they probably wouldn't sell any more doors after the first round that they sold, because they're of such poor quality and have an inherent design defect. And maybe they also have, in my case, a manufacturing defect where this problem appeared sooner than it might otherwise have appeared. So as I mentioned, I bought 14 doors. 9 of the doors have already manifested this really, severe problem. So here's a picture of one of those door frames. You can see for yourself here on the right side how it's kind of like for a moment I thought it was a shrink wrap that they just put on there, like they do for some electronic products, etc., just to protect it. No, that's actually meant to be a permanent surrounding and casing around the frames. I don't know if they use heat or glue or a combination of these things, but this is what's already been popped out. So let's look at some other pictures. Here's a close-up of that same door. You can see just how bad that problem becomes. Now when you peel it off, because I thought, this might be some kind of shrink wrap, you end up seeing this basically particle board type material. So it's impossible to paint. You can't just put a piece of wood, cut the size, etc., because then all of a sudden you can't close your door, etc. So once this happens, this door is pretty much finished. And as you may or may not know, you really can't buy these frames standalone. They will sell them with the door, so now you're stuck having to buy the entire door. And the problem with the folks at Menards / Midwest Manufacturing is they'll replace these frames under warranty, but here's the catch. They're not going to reimburse you for the installation, the removal, and the installation cost again. And as you know, if you just do some searches, putting in doors, interior doors, cost anywhere from $250 to $400 plus, especially if you live, as in this case, in a rural area where there's just not a lot of labor. So you're really out of luck. And the other thing is they're going to replace it with particle board frames again. So, maybe you can get by a couple of years, but if you ever have high humidity and high heats, anything above 85 degrees seems to start creating these problems, you're out of luck. The other thing, everything starts to fall apart. So once you're having to carve out for the door locks, etc., it's very easy for an entire piece to break because it's crumble, actually. It's very flimsy material. So very, very poor material. It is an inherent design flaw, clearly. Now, the other thing I want to point out, because I started to look at reviews and complaints from other people, obviously not at the Menards site. Here you can see this kind of popping off of this material. But the thing that I saw a lot of comments about is because they use this particle board type material, over time, these doors with the weight and opening and humidity, etc., they start to come off. And, if you know anything about particle board, once that screw comes off and it breaks off a piece, good luck. You're really going to be very hard to repair that. So if you don't have this warping problem with this, you're going to have problems with the hinges down the line. So it's just, again, like I said, a design flaw. Here's another door. You can see that popping off of this encasing that they use. Here's another example, another door. So it's just a nightmare what's been created. And their solution, rather than doing a recall, is to have you foot the bill and reinstall what is inherently a defective door anyway. So the last thing I want to mention is this is not a warranty issue. There is an inherent design defect in this, the fact that they decided to use particle board. There may also be a manufacturing defect when they did it, because I'm sure their intent, and maybe they've sold some doors where this didn't happen in such a short span as it did with my doors. Mine is not the only one. I'm going to show you another complaint from somebody that's had exactly the same problem. And what I want to show is that this is a design defect. It's a product liability issue. When you have, maybe it's a one-off thing or some other problem, yes, it's covered by the warranty. But when you have a product that has an inherent design defect and or a manufacturing defect, that becomes a liability. In other words, damages that you incur, like having to uninstall and reinstall these doors, is something that Midwest Manufacturing should do. This could be under the, it's definitely a product liability and can result in mass tort litigation, class action lawsuits, because there's probably thousands of other doors out there. And over time, when the warranty is out, a lot of people have just been out of luck. And you wouldn't know it because Menards seems to do a good job to hide ratings, reviews,